All right, so let's start by you telling me how you
Saying
started.
hello,
Hello, chaparrito.
maestro, un gran placer regreso a su casa y hablar con ustedes de mis películas. You know, we
He says
met.
hello.
What I was saying was hello in really bad Spanish with a great accent.
I love your accent.
You know, Puerto no es malo. I have a pretty good accent, but I have no idea what I'm saying.
But you know, the first time I saw Paul live was in Mexico City.
So we met.
well, I went backstage.
Yeah.
And it was a trip because my best friend in life and we drove from Guadalajara to Mexico in my Nissan, my Datsun.
You did. And you said you were wearing your dad's suit. You
Yes,
told me
my
later.
Datsun, which was a suit made of polyester with squares. So that was the only suit I had.
Oh my God.
And we went into your show, and that was the only time you played in Mexico,
And I
right?
also heard that your car broke down on the way home, and you wound up pushing the car home. What a great beginning of a friendship.
It is.
You
It
know?
has been.
Yeah.
It has been much better ever since. But you know, Phantom. I wanted to talk to you about that, but I also wanted to talk to you about even earlier than Phantom, and by this, even earlier than Holy Mackerel. I would love
Wow.
to just talk about Paul the Kid, because
Yeah.
there is, I think, a center to your songs and to you that has a purity that you find in the loneliness of childhood almost.
Well, not only, thank you. And incidentally, almost everything in our friendship, and my hearing this is what I call a heart payment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you get that as a director. Somebody comes up to you and they go, "Oh my God, I love this," whatever. And my wife and I went. Oh, our first date was when we went to see whatever. You'll get
Yes,
that too.
yes.
So this is a heart payment for me and all. But I think that for me, part of it, the core of who I am and what I write is that I felt different from the very beginning. When I was about 9 years old, they gave me shots to make me grow, because I was very, very slow in growing, and they gave me male hormone, which was a terrible thing to do, because what it did is it kicked me into puberty, which made me interested in looking down Aunt Edna's blouse but it didn't make me grow. It made the bones kind of close off, so I was smaller. I mean, when I got out of high school, I was 4'6". I'm 8 inches taller than that now. If I took another 8-inch spurt over a decade, whatever. But the fact is, I was so tiny and I looked so young. If you look at me in The Loved One, when I was 22, I think 22 years old, I looked like a 13-year-old.
You and Truman Capote.
Yeah, exactly. So I felt so different, and I think that kind of made its way into what I wrote about. And it turns out that everybody at the center of the chest, I think, feels that. I think that the fact is that, especially when we're young, I mean, at this point in your life, I would imagine you have a sense of who you are and what you've accomplished that is powerful and is. I mean, you're Guillermo del Toro.
I'm,
and you know
I'm younger
that
now than I was when I
you're
was
younger
a kid.
now. But the fact is, I would be willing to bet that Guillermo del Toro, in high school or in his teens, was not the most confident of guys.
No, earlier. I mean, Miyazaki, the great animator in Japan,
Yes.
has a great philosophy. He says nostalgia doesn't happen only to people that have already lived. Kids are born with nostalgia.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's something really important in your songs. There is a great sense of loss. But what I'm driving at is there is in your best work a connection that you feel redeemed by art. I mean, it's almost like you have a connection with both film and music.
Yeah.
You're not a musician that makes film or an actor that makes music. It seems to me, when I saw you growing up, I was watching an artist that was at ease in any medium. You were as good an actor as you were a composer, or you were as much at ease, you know?
You know, the birth of the love for the art was in a movie theater. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, the first film that I actually remember just going, I mean, took my breath away was a movie called "With a Song in My Heart," about Jane Froman, about this woman who's in a plane wreck and is fighting to keep her leg from being amputated, and they do surgeries, and she'd wake up and it's my leg still there, whatever. But she sang to the troops, and it was Susan Hayward playing Jane Froman. And something, I mean, I wasn't nearly old enough to connect on the level that I did, but it touched me. There's something about the place where that movie and the song, and through the years, anytime that music was more than just a score. Blackboard Jungle.
Yeah.
Where in Blackboard Jungle, the music is the environment of the film. I was blown away by it. Man with the Golden Arm. Mm-hmm. Frank Sinatra, Man with the Golden Arm, the world of jazz and all. But I just, I loved I loved songs. I loved the American Songbook. I loved Cole Porter and Gershwin and those old songs.
Were those important when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, that's what I listened to. And I was one of those horrible little kids that sang Danny Boy, and I'm yours. I'm yours, heart and soul, I am yours. I don't know why, but I related to all that. And maybe it's past life stuff. We don't know about these things,
Never,
but for
yeah.
some reason, I never related to rock and roll. I never related to the music of the 50s when I was in the 50s. When I heard the Beatles, and I saw the roots of what helped to create the Beatles, I moved back through time and all of a sudden I'm listening to "Why Must I Be a Teenager in Love" in my late 20s and loving it like it was brand new.
Was that did the process of discovery as you grow older? Did you go from the songbook to a different exploration of music because you wanted to write it already?
The only reason I started writing songs is because I couldn't afford to do anything else. All I wanted was to be, and I joke about it, that I wanted to be an actor. I felt like Montgomery Clift. My two favorite actors, incidentally.
Yeah.
Montgomery Clift, and very different schools. Montgomery Clift and Spencer Tracy.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved watching both of them on the screen. And I felt like Montgomery Clift. Unfortunately, I looked like Haley Mills, is what I always say.
But I can see what you're saying, because there is a sense of doom and loss and sort of a poetic energy in Montgomery Clift.
Yeah.
Before and after the accident, both.
Before and after, exactly.
It's a wonderful, incredible face to watch.
Actor.
Yeah, a brilliant actor.
And before he says a word, before he makes a move, you feel his pain.
Yes.
And you just want to hold him. You be there with that, and so I wanted to act. A good therapist would say, Paul, you did not want to be Paul. You wanted to be somebody else, probably. Mm-hmm. And I loved, and the thing is, what I think I brought, if I brought one great tool to the process as a songwriter, I brought what I felt as an actor, was go to the emotion first. Forget the words you're saying. Forget go to what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Go to what is authentic to what you're feeling. And I told you earlier, I wasn't bright. I wasn't educated enough to retreat into intellect. So I wrote from the heart.
But that's incredibly important, because obviously there are very smart melodic and musical things that you play with, especially in Phantom, and we'll get to Phantom soon enough. But you can quote musical schools or forms and genres and so forth. But what is constant, what is beautiful always, is the heart in your songs. And there's always that phrasing that it wouldn't quite be perfect in a poem. It wouldn't be quite perfect in a prose piece. It can only exist in a song.
In a song, yeah. You can get away with something in a song that is, it would be Hallmark cards if you weren't singing it, And some of the songs that I look at were incredibly Hallmark cards in the lyrics I wrote. But you put something like "What I've Got They Used to Call the Blues, no need to talk it out, we know what it's all about," and Karen Carpenter's mouth. She, there's a forced, horrible rhyme in Rainy Days and Mondays. Talking to myself and feeling old. Sometimes I like to quit, nothing ever seems to fit. Hanging around, nothing to do but frown. Excuse me, hanging around, nothing to do but frown. For a long time, I would wince when I would sing that, because it seemed like you were just looking for a rhyme, and frown is not a word that was nothing to do but frown. And yet, now, perfect. 30 years, 40 years later, I go, yeah.
Like, I know for me, your music is seriously enmeshed in that cheesy phrase when they say the soundtrack of your life.
Yeah.
Your music is enmeshed in my childhood and youth and my early adulthood, and it is so important, formative in the emotions that it has, because I dated my wife with old songs, old souls,
See, that's a hard payment.
I said to my wife, this is the song about you and me. I tried to name my daughter Phoenix, which my wife wisely didn't allow.
I wouldn't allow it.
But when we were saying we're going to have a daughter, I say, if we have a daughter, we name her Phoenix. But and everything, when you say even just Rainy Days and Mondays, just the idea amazing. Where the lonely ladies on Park Avenue, whatever the phrases that like float around. But there is a sense of longing in
Yeah.
your songs that I think connects with our generation in a very, very powerful way across the world. And there is a poet that has a phrase, and I'm going to misquote it, but that speaks very much. He says, "My heart has looked for all my life something I cannot name."
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
and
No,
I
I get
think
that.
that emotion is in your songs, and that's why you connect so well with Phantom in a way.
Well, I think the gate, the point of entry is the V word, is vulnerability, and Phantom, and Phantom was not a success. Essentially, around the world, it was ignored except for two cities. I mean, there were two cities where Phantom was really well received:
Winnipeg
Winnipeg and Paris.
and Paris,
And Paris,
where it was celebrated.
where it was celebrated, and it was, and I don't know why, but I think that the people that found it in especially in Winnipeg, I think it was related to the age, and there seems to be around 13, like almost that prepubescent into the early teens and all, where there's this kind of sexual awakening and all, and probably a certain a parallel insecurity. I mean, I don't know if the rest of the world had the same sort of entry into adulthood that I did, but I think we all get overwhelmed by all the emotion, all the hormones, everything we're feeling. And I think that there was something in Phantom that was non-threatening about Swan's, for example, Swan's sexuality. I think that I was very androgynous in those days. I had the long blonde hair, and I looked,
You were super thin at
yeah,
that
I
moment.
was super skinny, exactly. Well, my weight goes up and down in the movie, and you can see that, But I think that there was something about my physical my physical presence that was non-threatening, matched with what Swan's character, which is all about power,
And
and
Winslow-
power is creates confidence, and confidence creates true sexuality.
And you play him as an actor. You play him. I mean, I've never quite seen you play that part before or after. And I'm also a Planet of the Apes freak, and I've been all my life. But those
This
are
is
my
a very easy friendship for me.
Very easy.
When you meet somebody that likes most of what you do,
Everything.
it's
You
and
get-
you like what they do as well.
But what I mean is Swan. There's certain choices on Swan that are really interesting. The way you play with power, you do some really almost silent picture. That moment when you're watching the tape with the crossed legs, and the way you're holding the cigarette and looking at the tape. There are mannerisms of Swan that come from somebody that has seen classic film.
Watch Orson Welles.
Orson Welles, or that has an economy and a confidence that is incredible.
My favorite scene as an actor is the bathtub scene, because you see the two characters.
Yes.
You see Swan
devil.
as this kind of today I've decided to kill myself. I mean, he just started this look. I've been
If I can't be young forever, I'd rather end it all. Now.
and suddenly this elegant, confident
Devil.
the devil, appears before him in the same visual, in the same presence,
Completely different.
but completely different. And he imbues him with this power, which creates confidence, which creates sexuality and sensuality, and it makes Swan so attractive. And I think what it says about, hats off to Brian De Palma in choosing to cast me in it, as opposed to going with David Bowie or somebody who was really sexy and whatever. He let me wear the mantle of the power and all. And he saw it while we were working on the music. He was looking at me going,
Did that happen over a long time?
well, his first thought was, you should play you could play a really scary Phantom. Winslow up, this little guy up in the rafters throwing things down at people and all. And I went, no, I can't. And the fact is, I never thought I could be menacing. I never thought I could be frightening in a physical fashion like that. But the mystery of Swan is the other thing is Bill Finley, does more with one eye behind that mask than I could have done with 6 of Paul Williams' talents.
Well, I also think there is a true power in such a small character physically
Yeah.
makes the power even more efficient. But did you study those classic actors? Not to
consciously.
prepare,
Oh
but
no, not
as
consciously.
a child growing up, did you
Oh, as a
were
child,
fascinated?
as a child, I would go home and act out every movie I ever saw, and I was Burt Lancaster, and I was Errol Flynn, and I was what we all did, I went home.
What is funny is a lot of those actors, and this is something I believe has been lost. And I'm not a nostalgia guy, but precisely Burt Lancaster or Cagney, and Burt Lancaster has a music to the way he delivers
The way he
lines.
talks about it.
Yes, yes.
It was
But
a
what is
wonderful.
love?
We just
But
lost a great actor named Eddie Lauder. It was a really good friend
Yes.
of mine. Ed Lauder was wonderful, and Ed did the best Burt Lancaster I've ever seen in my life. And it was just that. It was just that.
Ron Perlman does a pretty good
Yeah.
Burt Lancaster.
Who does?
Ron Perlman.
Oh, right, does he?
But what I'm saying is these are actors that have almost a musical voice
Yeah.
in a strange way.
Yeah.
And your voice back then also is very studied not only in the singing, but you had a way of talking that was almost a purring.
Well, a lot, I was also a major addict in those days, so I couldn't breathe through my nose. Probably, so everything sounded of the day after day with me to fit. I'm 23 years sober, so you look at any part of my life, any piece of my life, and there's a major awakening. In 1990, and I mean, I actually had my last drink in 1989, but in March 15th, 1990, everything changed. I woke up.
Was it sudden?
Oh my God! It was a wonderful awakening. It was like I had spent the 80s were you're an alcoholic when you misplace a decade, and that was classically Paul Williams. I spent the one thing I did that's memorable in the 80s is Ishtar. Wrote the intentionally bad songs for Ishtar, but I went from 48 Tonight shows, sitting on Carson's couch, to hiding out in my bedroom, peeking out the Venetian blinds, looking for the tree police because I knew they were out there. And just I was a mess.
However, let me ask you this, because I've met a couple of celebrities from my youth, and they all have a lost decade here and there, depending on
it was
who
going
you
around in
who you
those
talk.
days, yeah.
But I think though that there is a center of perversity that Swan has that would be impossible had you not experienced that too. I mean, there is. It informs the performance.
Yeah.
To some degree.
There is, well, what you're seeing was probably a well-contained bit of hunger. It's like I had gone from being very different to around 1970, beginning to have, a pretty high level of celebrity.
Yes.
And when all of a sudden you go from being different to being special, and it's addictive. For me, it was addictive, and I think that at that point, with like 74, doing Phantom. I think that there was I was beginning to sense what I was being given, and I don't think I had begun to abuse it yet, which I in fact did eventually. I look, in the documentary Paul Williams Still Alive, there's footage of me hosting Merv Griffin, and it's almost impossible for me to watch it. And I'm actually filmed by the director Steve Kessler. Filmed me watching it, and it almost makes me sick because I had no sense of who I was becoming. I'm watching myself as the most arrogant, nasty, shallow, vapid little character that I had become at that point because of the arrogance of the egomaniacal.
Everything you do is gold. Everything you do is
exactly
fantastic and should be celebrated.
And there's no humility. There's zero gratitude.
But don't you think that you needed to go both ways to find the center, in a way? I mean,
I did. I mean, it's almost a moot point because the fact is that it's what I did. What is wonderful is that rather than denying those years, I'm able to. I mean, I've never felt more useful in my life than I am right now.
Yes.
First of all, because I'm very open about my recovery. I talk about recovery. I talk about alcoholism and drug addiction. There are two things I'm intensely passionate about. I'm passionate about recovery, and I'm passionate about creators' rights. That you have the right, to earn a decent living with when your work is
what
streamed,
you create.
with what you create. that when these kids that are starting out writing wonderful songs in a world where where their work is being streamed.
Yes.
For 8 cents, 1,000 streams is insane. So we need to adjust the way we do business so we can properly
Needs to be
compensate.
rebalanced. But going back to your point about where you were, I think that is almost impossible to go from famine to
Feast.
restraining the feast. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not
Famine
quoting
too.
the feast.
Yeah.
But I also think there is a blessing in the fact that most people don't experience posterity. You die and then posterity comes.
Yeah.
But when you experience the rewards of posterity during your lifetime, which you are generationally now connecting
Yeah.
in a way that gives you a second complete youth in a way,
Totally.
in a responsible way.
Yeah.
I don't think you would have experienced any of this had you not swayed that violently.
But I'll go even beyond that to say that not only around my addiction, but in my entire life, no is a gift. Yeah. That no is a gift. When I didn't get the career I wanted as an actor, I found an art form that I could breathe in, and it led me to opportunities to do the original. So, but none of it would have happened if I hadn't failed, if I hadn't faced failure or rejection initially. Yeah. So, and again, I was when I was newly sober, I was cast in The Frighteners, which was shot down in New Zealand. I thought, okay, this is it. This is going to rebuild my career as an actor. This is the opportunity to get the recognition that I deserve as an actor. They got the plane ticket, everything was all lined up, and they wanted John Astin for the role. And John Astin's schedule changed at the last minute, and they called me, and my agent called me and said, they went with John Astin, the contract's being torn up, whatever like that. And my immediate reaction was, wow, what's coming? It's like I because of recovery, because of sobriety, instead of, there wasn't even 30 seconds of a damn. As much as I wanted to do that movie,
you know something is coming.
I knew something was coming. And what happened is within a day I got a phone call to go down to Nashville, and they were doing a thing called Tin Pan South. While I was there, I met a guy named John Vesner. We sat down and I wrote the first song with somebody that had written in sobriety. And I have to tell you, I walked into his house, and turned out we were both in recovery. We wrote a song that 3 years later was the #1 record for Diamond Rio called "You're Gone." Mm-hmm. It was all directly related to not getting something else that I thought was going to serve my ego.
But if you had the entitlement, you would be blind to that.
Yeah.
You had all the entitlement you had before.
So what I get to be today is grateful and trusting. I'm writing this book called Gratitude and Trust. Recovery is not just for addicts.
Yeah.
It was born with, I'm writing with a woman named Tracy Jackson, and she said to me, "You keep talking about gratitude and trust." I said, "Yeah, my choo-choo runs on twin rails of gratitude and trust. I'm grateful for the life I have today, and I trust that I'll be able to show up and write the songs that are the right songs for Pan's Labyrinth. Mm-hmm. I trust that I'll be given the opportunities to do the things, and if things, I just."
Trust is the way to what they call a state of grace, I think.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid and they spoke about the state of grace, I think trust is the element of that. But now, when you were writing Phantom, and gradually De Palma thought he could be Swan.
Yeah.
What did he thought you could be Swan, or did you think you could be Swan?
It's funny because I've read a couple of things where people have said that I bartered songs to play Swan. That's not true.
Not true.
No. I just knew that I could not play Winslow. Mm-hmm. But then he said, "Would you, what about Swan?" And I went, it's like... And
you've already given Winslow his voice and his soul, in a way, with the songs.
Yeah.
So you were playing Winslow partially.
I was playing, it's funny because that's the way I approach writing for characters. Like in Ishtar, I was cast in 2 roles in Ishtar. I was cast to play, I was playing Chuck and Lyle, 2 mismatched. Talk about a schizophrenic acting job. Yeah. I'm writing the songs that I felt were the heart and soul of these mismatched writers. So you're right. But I have to tell you, it sounds like there was such a consciousness of what I was doing when I was working on Phantom, and there wasn't. What the connection was De Palma's story. The connection is the story.
The script.
The script is Bible.
But the script kept changing.
The script kept changing.
A lot.
And the major change was as soon as we decided not to kill beef on stage, As soon as it was decided that wait a minute, we kill him on stage, but we've been doing all this other. What if the kids think it's part of the show? And at that moment, it was like cling. It was like you just lit up this little room we were in. Became a. You threw on the lights and it became a cathedral. And the idea, the immensity of the idea is in one line that I say, and you know what that line is. You know that my favorite line in the movie
assassination.
is an assassination live on coast-to-coast television. That's entertainment, because all of us. I mean, we were at a place in the world. You know, we're post. You know, Vietnam.
Yes.
You know, we're watching the news from Vietnam, you know, on television while we're eating our TV dinners, and it's becoming entertainment. And the line between what is news and what is entertainment is slowly but surely disappearing.
Blurring.
You know, I mean, and now you jump to us all these years later, and you look
It's gone now.
Oh my God! And you look at reality, quote, reality television.
Jorge Luis Borges said once, "A masterpiece cannot be designed or calculated. It happens." And like it's ironic that you wanted to write David Bowie, and David Bowie ends up recording a cover of
Fill Your
you.
Heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Biff Rose and I. Yeah.
And you were not attempting to do that. Now, was Biff a riff on Biff? That Biff, or was it?
No,
Not on Biff Rose?
No, there was no connection with that. No, but Biff Rose is just an amazing writer
And your partner, right?
at the time, exactly. We wrote just a few songs together,
Mm-hmm.
and he had actually started "Fill Your Heart." I think he had the first verse done, and I finished the rest of the lyrics.
That's the
and-
way you wrote with
Yes,
him?
this was the first thing I think we wrote, and he had "Fill Your Heart." We love today, don't play the game of time. Things that happened in the past happen in your mind, and I went on with "Happiness is happening." The dragons have been bled, whatever, and we finished it together. But it's funny because it was the B-side of "Tiptoe Through the Tulips" with Tiny Tim.
Correct.
And again, it's like, what an amazing album Richard Perry made. And I think at the time I probably went, Tiny Tim, but I mean, I met Tiny, I loved him, it was wonderful. But through that, Richard Perry decided he wanted to record me, and I wound up doing The Holy Miracle with Richard. He produced that.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the accidents, I don't want to do that, I didn't want to write a commercial for a bank.
Yeah.
And Roger Nichols and I sit down and write a commercial. It's like, I'm going to write rock and roll. I'm not going to write a bank commercial. And Richard Carpenter hears the commercial, asks if there's a full song, and it's We've Only Just Begun, and it's our first #1 record.
No, and that is one thing, because
That was a gift.
I was a huge fan of yours before Phantom, and what is curious is, where was the indication for the Palma to go to you specifically for this?
I have no idea, because I would have been my last choice.
That's
based
what I
on
meant,
what you
were
had
composing.
seen. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not only that, most of what I was doing that had anybody knew anything, with the exception of Old Fashioned Love Song that I wrote words and music for, most of it was collaboration with Roger Nichols at that point. Roger Nichols and I wrote those Carpenters hits together. We wrote, Out in the Country for Three Dog Night together. Family Man I wrote for Three Dog Night with Jack Conrad. There was very little going on that was hugely successful.
So how do you
that I had written words and music
When
to.
do you meet with him? Where and when does it happen?
He went to A&M Records that had just started a film department, and Michael Arciega, who was the head of film department at A&M Records, said, you should listen to some of the stuff that Paul Williams is doing. And I think he played him some of the things that were maybe not getting recorded. I'm not sure why. Sometimes things are whispering to us. You just get a feeling. He thought I might be right.
You're in a way a natural for Winslow. You're in a way a natural for that part. Was he ever considered you would write one thing and somebody else would write other numbers?
I never even, there's a part of me that just hears that it's my job. I don't know why. Barbra Streisand called and wanted me to write one song for A Star Is Born. I'd written a song with Kenny Asher called You and Me Against the World. Mm-hmm. And she wanted a song for the end of the picture where she finds John Norman Howard's last thing he wrote, which is the song that became With One More Look at You. Mm-hmm. that that she wanted me to write that. But on the phone, what I heard was, I want you to write all the songs for A Star Is Born. I mean, just it's what I heard. Wow, Barbra Streisand wants me to write all the songs for A Star Is Born. So when I showed up for the meeting with her, and in the script I had where the songs would go, what they'd be about, blah,
With
blah,
Brian.
blah blah blah, with Barbara.
With Barbara.
So in other words, I don't know if Brian had approached me with like, I want you to write the songs for Winslow or whatever. All I know is that from the very beginning it was my gig. One other thing about that, a reason I didn't want to play Winslow, and it was most important to me at the time, is that I didn't want anyone to think that I was saying I've been ripped off by the music business. I was at that point so grateful to A&M Records. I showed up at A&M Records in a stolen car and found a life, So I was so grateful for what I'd been given.
Car.
A stolen car. Well, it was borrowed, but I was going to take it back. But
That's what you say now.
yeah, I know. Call my attorney. But the fact is that I didn't want people to think that I was saying my music's been stolen, because it hadn't been. It has never been.
I think it's a point that comes directly from the original Phantom, the musician that has been stolen. I don't think, but the thing that is most fun is when you, as I said, as an actor, you reveal a side of you that is perverse in a gleeful, beautiful way in the movie, but musically, things like Life at Last, is such an anthem, and it's so powerful and so unlike anything you've done.
I'm evil that you created, getting horny and damn frustrated.
Yeah. And was this like the most beautiful gift, the most fun gift?
Oh my God, I had so much fun. And I started writing it up in Lake Tahoe. I was opening for Liza Minnelli, so I was living on grapefruit juice and trying to get thin enough for the role and all. But
so you were writing while you were performing at night.
Exactly.
What was the first song you wrote?
The first song I wrote was "Half Asleep I Hear a Voice."
Is it only
in my mind, or is it someone called? Did I write?
Someone
Wait a minute. I may have written. I was not myself last night. Couldn't set things right with Apollo. I think I wrote that first, which is the first, the first song that Winslow sang.
That's the first one that came.
I think so. This is I'm guessing. I'm guessing that was the first.
Either of those.
Initially, Brian wanted to use Sha Na Na as the '50s group, as the Juicy Fruits. So I think that at one point I was like, sort of, are they gonna come in? What are they gonna do? Whatever. And then I had just a conversation with him about it. I said, why not have the same group all the way through?
That's what is genius.
Yeah, and I don't honestly remember if that was his idea or mine. But I knew the thing is, I was most comfortable with my own band. I've never had a lot of musical education. I mean, I'm a terrible musician. I'll write a song, I'll go to the piano, I'll write it in my head, I'll go to the piano and find the chords, and I can just play it just enough to show it to the guys, then we play it and record it and all. Now with Chris Caswell, who's my music director, and for years I'll show it to Kaz, and I always joke that he makes it sound like a grown-up wrote it, But the fact is, I've never been a really talented musician.
Technically,
I'm not a musician. So I think I was uncomfortable with the idea of having to work with Sha Na Na, one of my own guys.
But that's what I mean. It speaks of prefab groups and the malleability of those groups.
Yeah.
They're interchangeable with their personality, can go from here to there.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
And
genius.
they were, but like Jeffrey Commodore was a really good friend, and I mean it was a natural to have upholstery where my baby sits so close to me. Again. One of my favorite lines I've ever written in my life is in that silly song, is of all life's mysteries, the greatest the one I've seen, my short run's better when it's clean. Because everybody knows that. When you take your car to the car wash and you wash it, it seems to run better.
Yes, but
these are the kinds of truths I've tried to share with the world through the years.
Now, when you write the first song, which one was the most difficult song to write?
The song that was the most from just the deepest, painful kind of place, maybe Old Souls.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's funny because that song kind of wrote itself too. Sometimes, sometimes it's just, if I put something off and I don't write it right away, by the time I get to writing it, my unconscious has done work that I feel like I had nothing to do with. I'll give you an example, and I'll use the Muppet Christmas Carol as an example. There was a song, the opening song for Scrooge, and Disney wanted an I Am song about Scrooge. This is who he is and all, and I had read the original manuscript. I'd read Dickens' Christmas Carol. I'd read the script. The script was wonderful by Jerry Jewell, and this was the first thing I'd written after I got sober. The first movie I was being given, I practically paid them to let me write the songs for a Muppet movie, the Muppet Christmas Carol. But I literally sat down with a mystery, with a Lawrence Block mystery, and I sat it next to me, and I said, okay, Big Amigo, creative source, whatever I call the Big Amigo. I go, Big Amigo, you know what this is all about? This is a scene where we see Scrooge's feet as he comes out of the building. We follow just his feet as he goes by these little characters in the snow and the mud, and they seem to get colder as he goes by. Let me know when you've got something. I picked up a book of the Lawrence Block mystery, and I started reading this good bloody opener to this mystery. About 4 pages in, I sat it down, and when he's walking, bum-bum-bum-bum-bum, do-da-bum-bum-bum-bum. When a cold wind blows, it chills you to the bone. But there's nothing in nature that freezes your heart like years of being alone. I went, wow, that's not bad. That's really good, thank you. It paints you with indifference like a lady paints with rouge. But the worst of the worst, the most hated and cursed, is the one that we call Scrooge. Oh, there goes Mr. Humbug, there goes Mr. Grim. If they gave a prize for being mean, the winner would be him. And it poured out of me. Immediately. And I think that the message for me there, and the message for me today, and the message that I, again, it goes back to trust, is trust your unconscious. We're so much more powerful, we're so much more creative than we give ourselves credit for. We lock ourselves down with fear. When I sit down, I'm going to write songs for Pan's Labyrinth. I'm going to write the best songs ever. No. But if I read this script and I go, this is a song that I need to write about this soldier, about this, I put it away, and my heart and my head get together. That's a team that sometimes I have little or nothing to do with.
And when it's hard, but it's rewarding, like in Old Souls.
Yeah.
You say it was hard. Does it mean it took the longest, like you went back and forth to it, or was it hard, but it came out all at once?
I think it was hard because there was, and again, I mean, it sounds so melodramatic to say like an emotional toll, but one of the things that was going on in my life that is probably shown up in 2 songs I've written is that my mother was dying, and it was an interesting time where I'm trying to write about one thing, whatever, and that energy, I think, made its way in. So there's that element of death, and we'll meet, whatever is, in fact,
We'll kiss hello.
It was there. A kiss when I must, when I must go. No tears in time, we kiss hello. Dream away. When there's no room left to live inside ourselves, do we dream away? A song I wrote with John Williams that Sinatra recorded. And so I think that what's going on in my life, I think maybe the fact that I can't, or I don't know if it's a can't or don't choose to, but I don't separate what comes out of me, and whatever the destination is. When I'm writing songs for Phantom, or if I'm writing songs for Pan's Labyrinth, what's going on in my world is going to flavor what I'm writing. It does you, I'm sure.
It does always. I mean, like when my wife saw Pan's Labyrinth complete for the first time, she said, "You felt that bad?" I said, "Yes."
Yeah. Oh my God.
But on Phantom, which one was the one that came out the fastest? Also, which song came out immediately, fast?
Probably Little Eddie Mitty, born in Jersey City, started singing when he was 5. Never for his father, mother didn't bother to catch his last name fast as he came. He was off. There's some lyrics tucked in there that are not R-rated.
It's one of the most quotable songs ever. I mean, when I'm cleaning around or driving or in the shower, that's the one that comes the easiest.
Does it really?
Yes.
It's funny because, I mean, what fun to write that,
Yeah.
what fun, because that's like time travel. That's like, okay, I'm going to go back and hang with Doc Thomas, or go back and hang with Lieber and Stoller and
But
write for.
it's also a ballad. I mean, it tells a whole story.
Yeah,
from beginning to
and
end.
now it has a spoken.
Eddie believed.
Yeah,
The
Eddie
American
believed
people.
the American people had wonderful,
Those
love-giving
loving
hearts.
Yes. I mean, just last Saturday, I was here moving stuff,
Oh my God.
and I was humming that.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I just love it.
Now, in the experience of shooting as an actor, again, which one was the hardest scene for you to do?
Well, the hardest scene was, because we actually had to wind up shooting it twice because I was brain damaged when we did it, was the rooftop scene with the,
Well, really, I have a contract
Yeah,
too.
I have a contract, like with the knife and whatever. Because I would stay up all night recording the guys. I'd cut the tracks and everything, and then as we were coming up to the songs, I'd take the actors in the studio at night, put their vocals on, then I'd mix playback tracks, for them to lip sync to while we were shooting, and get those tracks and all together. And, I mean, actually remember going to the set. I still had my makeup on from the day before. They took the
Wow.
makeup off, put new makeup on, and we shot the rooftop scene. And I couldn't remember who I was.
So you shot it twice.
We shot it twice, yeah.
And when you look at it, is there any of the first time shoot, or everything is the second shoot?
I don't know.
Nothing
I
remains?
think it's all the second. I'm not.
I love that scene.
I think maybe the master, when we come to, was probably was probably the first time. But then when you get inside there, it's just, and even now when I hear myself, there's something sort of rote about the way it's like I'm trying to remember it to say it, as opposed to there are other places in there where I feel like I'm totally in the character.
I love the way that scene is assembled, the way it's cut to the dialogue. I mean, De Palma, I think, what is curious is I think De Palma has an incredible affinity with adolescents. He almost is a genius adolescent.
Yeah.
When he does the character, for example, the kid in Dress to Kill, the girl in Carrie, but the way the Fury, but the way he contemplates love and romance in Phantom, it's so synthetic. It's so crushed. Like they fall in love. He's talking to you about a huge love story that happens in 2 meetings.
Oh, I know.
That happens in. They spend probably less than 3.5 minutes together.
Oh, they spend no time together.
No time together.
Yeah, exactly.
But they recognize each other.
But the great love scene in the movie is Winslow watching
Swan.
Yeah, that's where you get the total. I mean, it has nothing to do with what's going on with me and Jessica on the bed. Yeah. The power of the scene is Winslow watching what every man's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
This is the woman that I love. Being ravaged by this little asshole.
Yeah. And it's done in a completely gothic romance way.
Yeah.
Like it couldn't be more overwrought in a great way. And that's why I think Phantom, to me, was so powerful, because when I did Kronos, there are 2 Phantom quotes. One of them, I couldn't solve the way to say that the device and him were linked, and it comes from Phantom. He says, if the device goes, you go, which comes from the rooftop scene, of course.
When it goes, you go.
Yeah. And him crawling, both in the beginning and on the crawling after the press. I tried to do that with Kronos, but I didn't have enough.
That's one of the
tracks.
few places ever in the history of film or whatever, like where I'm playing the piano. Dun, 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 that crawling stuff.
That's you.
That's actually
and
me.
It's beautiful.
Mostly it's Craig Durkee. I think of Craig Durkee or Lincoln Majorca. But I did this really kind of bang thing on top of it, almost a single note thing.
Phantom is... we talk about the songs and all, but you did the score, and the score is a different layer of the film.
The score is actually George Tipton doing the underscoring.
But did you compose?
No. He did that very kind of Baroque sort of
silent movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that was his. I mean, the only thing that is in there as kind of as score is da 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 da. Never gotta get to meet the devil.
Yeah.
But no,
which somebody has to put out.
Yeah.
On record form.
The score is, I think it's a perfect compliment. I think he did an amazing job.
And there is in the film, there is a sense of, it's an adolescence film. It's not an adult film by any means,
No.
but it encapsulates the angst and the loneliness and the longing and the loving and the romance of what you think of when you're an adolescent.
But it's also built on a legend that, I mean, the Faustian story is, you know, I had teenage girls come up to me and they go, "That was so amazing that like the guy sells his soul to the devil. Did you make that up?" And I was like, "No,
Well,
not really."
but the beautiful thing is the legend of Faust is actually selling your soul for knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, and what is great about it is De Palma makes it the ultimate romance story. I mean, that moment in the glass, honestly, one of the greatest moments in any film ever.
Yeah.
Is the reason why it works is because the movie is overwrought not only with the gothic romance, but the way he uses everything from different contexts, the silent theater, the silent film music,
Yeah.
which is, you know, the pianola, the overcranked fast camera.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
De Palma is literally going everywhere, and you do the same in the music.
Well, the interesting thing about that scene is in the midst of that, this horror, is you get the pure De Palma wink because you get me reaching over,
Yes.
watching myself, watching Winslow,
Watching
watch
you.
us, you know. So I mean, it's the voyeur within a very voyeur moment, which is pure De Palma.
And it's pure Swan. I mean,
Yeah,
Swan
yeah.
would get much more joy from knowing that he's being watched with
Of course.
pain.
Exactly. That's the glory of it for him, you know.
And at that moment, the moment when the Phantom is done, the music industry was probably the most powerful
Yeah.
industry in the world in a way. You know, because compared to the movie business, the profits were even bigger.
Yeah.
And they were literally at the cost of people's souls. Because
Sure.
I believe music is as close to the soul as it gets.
As you
an
can
art.
get.
Yes.
Oh, that great moment when the never to be seen moment with the cards, you know. see
Never
all that.
to be
And
seen.
if you know, and if you look at the names,
The
of the card,
Rolodex
it
above
was,
and
you know,
be- yeah.
Jerry Moss,
David
and,
Geffen.
David Geffen, and all those names going on. And of course, the other thing about the scene of Winslow watching us make love is you have Jessica Harper's amazing vocal rolling over it.
We're old souls in a new life, baby. They gave us a new life.
And she was, you know, there's a scene, you know, the tryout scene. There's an element of what actually happened to that, because in New York, Brian and I were listening to singers and you know, auditioning actresses, and Jessica Harper was singing. I had, you know, the song that I had all the actresses sing to audition was "Long Ago and Oh So Far Away. I fell in love with you before the second show." It was that I knew that's kind of where the song was going to be. I'm not even sure that I had finished Old Souls yet. Mm-hmm. But I'm standing behind Jessica Harper singing "Long Ago and Oh So Far Away I Fell," it was beautiful. She comes in to sing then for Brian and I, and she goes, "Long ago," and I went, "No, sing it to yourself." And it was just,
and that's kind of in the movie.
Oh my God, when she sings it, it's just,
Yeah.
it's, and how about the Iris moment?
Yes.
I mean, talk about you know, again, it's old melodrama, old silent film melodrama.
It's the way he is capable of, I mean, doing like intertextual would be the term. I mean, he's pulling from every influence he's ever had, but he's putting a spin on it. I think that it's eminently modern, and I think the movie, for me, what is fascinating for me about the movie, it has dated and then not dated, and then I watch it again and it feels right now. And then it feels as an artifact of my youth, and then it's completely now again.
But I think the other thing that you have to hand back to Brian is that I think that all these filmic devices have like an emotional harmonic to them.
Of course.
You know, and the reason they were used initially is because they inspired a certain response. So for a preteen or a teenage audience member who hasn't been exposed to all those films and knows nothing about the fact that they're a cinematic reference, they still get
They still work.
It still works.
Emotional.
They still get that harmonic.
Yes.
To that device.
And that is why what is fascinating about the film is that it can be very elliptical in its writing, in the writing of the film.
Yeah.
Like to this day, I marvel at Winslow's escape. He jumps into a box,
I know.
the box
I
opens,
know.
he's out. And it works. You
Yeah.
never question it. You never go, "Why?"
And you know where that was filmed? Pressman Toy Store. In their factory.
In the factory with the press, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the fact, one of the things that I love is that he has the record
On his
pressed
face.
on his
Exactly,
face.
exactly.
Which I think I'm longing to do a life-size figure of Winslow.
Of Winslow,
where I can
yeah.
take out the mask and read.
What a stunning performance.
Yeah,
Just
it
an
is.
amazing performance.
And when you work with him, tell me a little bit about working with William Finley.
You know, I think I probably had less to do with it, with what he did, than anybody on that set. I think that you know, his focal point was Brian and the song. I think that he was, you know, I mean, it's just, I mean, I would love to tell you that I got him off in a coma. Most of my, what I had to say to anybody on that set was, you know, was not only was it not influencing or changing performances, but sometimes it was just simply in the way. I remember walking up to Brian De Palma, and we were moving the camera up to the balcony, and then we were moving the camera down to the stage, and we were moving the camera to the balcony, and I walked up to Brian and I went, you know, any fool would know that a Chapman crane would be perfect right here to make these moves so easy. And he's like looking at the lights, and he goes, "The stage won't support a Chapman crane." And I'm like, oh, excuse me, whoops, I'll be in the bathroom or something.
That is great.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
told him that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm like, I'm going. Anybody could see you, and he's like, of course he thought. He thought of that the first moment he looked at the stage, checked the way that it's, you know. So I'm just, you know, I'm being one of those what I really want to direct, arrogant little. I was being Swan.
But I love the two moments in which there are two moments that I love where Swan is so in control while Winslow is in the throes of pain. Breakfast, the moment with the pills.
A little
Breakfast.
bit of a pick me up.
A little bit of a picnic,
Yeah.
which is also in Kronos. Breakfast, blues and reds. The red ones are particularly good today. But what I love is that he and the transportation clause.
Yeah.
So, but it's delivered in perfect smugness.
Yeah.
And then when he takes off his mask and Winslow contorts and he says, "Oh my God, you look terrible," you know.
Yeah.
There's something of a center to Swan that needs to be. It's in a way the center of the film.
Well, you see his flexibility. The first time Swan speaks to Winslow, you see how he manipulates the world around him. Winslow, been looking for you everywhere. I mean, he doesn't take it. He's got a knife to his throat.
Zero.
You know, nothing else comes out of him except, you know, the perfect thing to say. You know, it's just, you know.
It's not the worst situation he has dealt with.
No,
Swan,
not at all. And he knows you can slice his throat all the way through, and you know, and he'll survive
Yes.
in his present form.
With which of the actors you felt you had the most rapport as an actor, the most intense rapport?
The three of them, you know, probably because I was in the studio with Archie Hahn, and you know, the guys from the Undead were
Juicy Fruits.
the Juicy Fruits, the Undead, you know, as they moved through the various, you know, incarnations of Swan's ego. Swan taking that soul and music to all those places and all, but because I also had a relationship with them in the studio, you know. I'll tell you one thing that I did that I feel a little iffy about, and that is I used a different voice. I used Ray Kennedy for the voice of Beef, because I knew what I wanted. I wanted that growling voice and that great rock and roll voice. So I wound up using the voice of Ray Kennedy, and you know, when you hear Beef in the shower, you're hearing Garrett Graham's voice, and it's very similar. And I thought, you know what? If I had it to do over again.
It's a perfect song. I'm not sure. I mean, how do you mess with perfection?
Yeah, I know.
Really hard. But you know, is there like when we were talking about Philbin as a character, and
George
again,
Memoli.
George Memoli, and the fact that even the name is a throwback at a wink at the silent film, and the way De Palma winks at the Claude Rains Phantom of the Opera mask.
Yes.
All these things are combined. Is there any of that where you think you brought, did any of your discussion with De Palma brought an element that affected the visuals from the songwriting?
No, I think that the visual, I think that's, Larry Pizer. Larry Pizer was a brilliant, brilliant cinematographer. I don't know if you ever saw Isadora, but
Yes, of course.
his use of color, his use of, and Jack.
The only Ken Russell movie that is not Ken Russell,
is,
Vanessa Redgrave.
yeah, but also Jack Fisk, who as as the art director who brought in, I describe sometimes Phantom as a cartoon done with real people. I mean, it has that kind of, the look of the film is so wondrous and so amazing, and I think that you have to hand it back to the graphics involved. You have to hand it back to the way the picture was lit, the way it was shot and all. This was before Steadicam. That amazing scene of going up the stairs into the closet.
Or him running down the corridor with the wide-angle lens and the cape floating.
That's on Ronnie, the camera operator's shoulder. Again, remembering the name, he actually won. He became a cinematographer and won the Oscar for Gandhi. But great camera work, great physical camera.
But
work.
was there any, was the Juicy Fruits always meant to be that type of rock and roll, or did you suggested it?
No, that was from the very beginning. That was written as a 50s rock and roll group. And actually, by the time each piece was written, I had a real strong sense of what I was writing for. I think, most of the conversations with Brian were about that place in time where death was becoming entertainment.
And Swan's desk, that was already designed.
I think that was either Brian or Jack Fisk.
Your wardrobe, however, you had anything to do with it.
I had nothing to do with that wardrobe. That was the brilliant work of our costume designer, and it was. It was, a lot of it was to hide, my stomach, which was kind of going up and down. There are scenes where I think there's a scene where I go into the dungeon, whatever, to talk to Winslow, and I give him the pills, whatever, and I leave, and it's shot in 3 different cities. It's in L.A., it's in Dallas, it's in New York, and my weight is different in all 3 things. So you see me going in, looking kind of chunky. I get inside, and I'm trim, and then you see me coming out, and I'm thin again. It's so bizarre.
People will pay attention to that now.
Yeah, exactly. If they're watching that.
How long was the shoot in Dallas?
I think we must have been there a month. I know I was there over Christmas time. One of the great memories I have is that Bill Bixby, who was a really good friend, said we can't leave Paul in Dallas alone at Christmas time. So while we're shooting the scene in the roles when we'll go to Swanage and celebrate. I won't have your night ruined. While we're shooting that, I get out of the car in the basement of this garage of this hotel we were shooting in, and or building we were shooting in, and sitting on a bench was my buddy Bill Bixby and his wife, and I went, "Oh my God!" He said, "We couldn't leave you here alone." So
That's
he came
beautiful.
in for New Year's Eve. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And in Dallas, the extras were all just a call.
Yeah.
Oh, but and the famous anecdote, is it true that there were real streetwalkers in the orgy scene?
Oh, you know what? If I wish I'd known. I'd never heard that.
Is it an urban legend?
Never heard that.
Yeah.
Probably an urban legend. I knew some of the. I've run into a couple of the girls that were in those scenes at in my world of recovery. We've run into each other and the like, but I don't know. Wow.
The idea, this idea of Swan trying to hold the youth, and that scene in the bathtub that you like so much, is it something that spoke to you personally, and either at that moment or earlier on?
About wanting to look, all I wanted was to look older. I wanted to look like a mature male, and I looked like, as I said, I looked like a little girl, and.
You did okay.
I did okay. I did. What I had. I made up for lost time. I had a great fun. But no, that scene was all about finding those characters. They're finding the original.
The two
Swan,
characters. Yeah.
Finding that little guy in the tub, who was, in my mind, he was like a young Phil Spector.
That is curious. You say that because what I think is fascinating is the Swan that is in the tub, the reflection. Neither of them is the Swan that results from that pact. The third Swan is like an amalgam of those two. That is beautiful.
That's interesting because I hadn't really thought about the difference between the devil swan because he's complete. I mean, he is absolutely
Yeah.
just complete power, complete, just he's the essence of evil.
Yes.
And comfortable with it and charming.
Yeah.
I think that one of the major elements that I wanted to bring to the character is make him charming.
Yeah.
How does he get away with all of this? Because he's just delightful.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there is a single moment in the entire film, and that's one of my favorite images in the film. And we talked about it briefly a little ago. Is him watching the tape
Yeah.
with just this contemplation. It's the only time you see Swan, and you play it sort of neutral. It is not emoting terribly, but it's such a powerful little moment where he is watching himself and his origins, and it's such a beautiful moment.
Well, the devil as creator has used his face as his canvas, and let every evil deed be another stroke of the devil's brush on that face. So it's a process where he has again and again watched himself slowly but surely turn into this monster. And I would imagine that a younger Swan had moments where he was going, "Oh my God, what is happening here?" But then there's nobody's going to see it but me. There may have been a stronger reaction. By now, he's seen it.
Many
Again
times.
and again and again, and it's horrific, and he doesn't enjoy watching it.
And what is great is the Palma shows you the face through the voice.
Yeah,
This tape will age in your place.
exactly.
You hear the voice, you hear.
Yeah, assassination, liar. You hear, yeah. And it's funny because I started. I think we did that voice, and I did that. I think it was almost in my mind, it was almost like a replacement voice. I didn't know if it was actually going to be me saying that.
Yeah.
That was sort of like, production sound. Who knows what we'll do with this later?
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen the face yet. I hadn't seen what Rolf Miller, the makeup guy, had done with the makeup. But it fit.
Your application at the end was not a prosthetic, was it? Was
The mask?
Direct makeup at the end.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that was a direct. I'm sorry, that was direct makeup. But it's funny because the mask was actually my life mask from
For
Battle
that.
for the Planet of the Apes.
Really?
Because the same gentleman, was it Kenny? Was it Rolf or Kenny? They were both, I think, on Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and Kenny Chase had been doing my makeup on Battle for the Planet of the Apes. I go on Carson with the
I remember it, yeah.
But if you're going to be using the applications, you have to have a life mask to begin with.
put them in, yeah.
To build, to mold them to. So they had done a life mask of me much heavier, and that was that little round little face.
That's why it could fit
that's
over
why it
your
wouldn't fit
face.
exactly, and we just painted it silver, and that was Paul Williams 4 years earlier from Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Now we talked briefly when about the Phantom connecting with two cities, Winnipeg, Paris, but it also connected very strongly in Japan. I mean, it is also a movie that is revered by a hardcore group in Japan.
And they're the ones that made the little models.
They made the action figures, which are in the other room, along with my other Phantom collectibles. But when a movie opens and it fails on the weeklies and the box office, the reviews are unkind or this and that, when did you get a sense of the movie getting a second life?
I knew right away that for some reason Winnipeg was responding to the film, because the record went gold in Canada based on sales out of Winnipeg, essentially.
Only there.
So it's like I got to tell you, I'm a Beatle in Winnipeg. I'm nobody in Beverly Hills, but by God, I'm hot in Winnipeg. What I found out later, and it's interesting because one of the gifts of the film is in the relationships I have today. My relationship with Guillermo del Toro is because of this film. My friendship with Edgar Wright is because of this film.
Quentin loves the film also. Yeah.
And the guys from Daft Punk, who saw the film in Paris like 20 times, and then reached out to me, and that's why I'm on the album. Why I'm on Random Access Memories.
Yes.
As an artist and as a writer, because of Phantom of the Paradise.
But was there a point other than Winnipeg? Was there a point where you, because Winnipeg literally it would be an anomaly on the beginning. But was there a moment where you realized it had touched a whole generation worldwide.
It occurred as slowly as Swan's face becoming horrific. It was a
Over the
it
years.
it was a fan letter at a time, and it delighted me. I mean, I love the. There are 2 or 3 things that I've done in my life that seem to have an inordinate response, as far as people wanting to reach out and connect. Phantom of the Paradise. I was the voice of the Penguin on the Batman animated series. For some reason, there's a big response to that specific series. That animated,
Casting,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You flying rodent, Batman, and the other one would be the Apes movies, Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
I would venture Rainbow Connection also.
Rainbow Connection has a different kind of an energy. That's as opposed to just fascination with the piece of art, with the film. With Rainbow Connection, it's these people taking something and sharing it with their children, which is pure heart pain.
Pure heart, yeah.
I mean, that's for you to tell me that your daughter relates
Yes.
to the Daft Punk stuff, but first related
To Rainbow Connection.
to Rainbow Connection.
My 2
is-
daughters have you on their early childhood with Rainbow Connection, and now they worship Daft Punk. Everybody at the house worships Daft Punk.
Yeah, oh my God.
But what I think is beautiful is that in the Phantom phenomenon, obviously the legacy, the 3 main recipients of the legacy were Bill Finley, you, and Brian De Palma. They, through the years, I'm sure this is a movie. Is this the movie that people talk to you about the most?
The most, yeah. And amongst the creative community, it's the one that people respond to.
I think part of it is because it's an immortal love story, but part of it is also such an artist's movie. It's a movie about the purity of creativity, the brutality of commerce,
Sure.
the clash of those 2 things.
God, the way you use words sometimes, Maestro, it's just, I mean, you say it beautifully. It's part of, I think, why I am passionate about music creators' rights is an element in that now, in actual life, is something that is hinted at in the story of Phantom, is that you have a moral right, as the Canadians say.
Yeah.
You have a moral right to the work you create, a moral right to control that.
Yes.
And for somebody to take that, to pirate it, or to use it at such a horribly devalued rate is just is tragic.
It is essentially connected not to commerce, but to the possibility of doing art as a living.
Yeah.
And people fail to realize that it goes beyond the record company or beyond the releasing film company. It affects the possibility of art to exist in that way. But let me ask you this about Phantom. Did you when you read the screenplay, was that the thing that connected with you first?
No, I think that what the original screenplay was Phantom of the Fillmore. It was a very different film. I think that the most glorious part of the whole experience for me was that Brian did not create something and bring me in to do this corner of the room, like our relationship. He said, let's fold this. This is a mixed master experience. We're all in this thing, and we're rolling through the creative process together, and it's revealing itself to us.
Who was other than De Palma? Who was in those meetings with you? Jack Fisk was there at some time.
Yeah, but I remember meetings mainly with Brian, and then with cast members as they came in with Bill from the very beginning. But Larry Pizer was a huge part of it. I mean, Larry Pizer, I think, was revered by Brian, loved by Brian, and I think that he brought something to the, and we honor him in the film. I go, Mr. Pizer, of one of the reporters. Mm-hmm. But I think that the creative process, there's no project that I've ever worked on except maybe the Muppet movie. Mm-hmm. Where I felt that we just we stepped on a moving carousel or something that was alive, and was using us and was morphing as we changed with the project. And what the piece of art that was the final piece of art was an amalgamation of how our hearts were affected by the brilliance of the story. Mm-hmm. And the story is, as you point out, is beyond. I mean, it's iconic. It's classic Gothic loss and love.
And that's where we end.
Theodore.
Beautiful. Ah, great.
But she didn't even blink.
She was waiting for the selfie.
Yeah.
Done.